Welcome to Van Tate's Sports Office, an in-depth look at the world of sports, featuring exclusive interviews with our KRQE News Sports Director, Van Tate, sponsored by Caesars Sportsbook at Route 66 Casino.
All right, Sports Office, talking a little football, and you know what that means, college football in New Mexico. We're talking about the New Mexico Lobos. First-year head coach Jason Eck, kind enough to join us today. And, Coach, it's been a busy time for you.
Yeah, it's been whirlwind the past few months here, just building this staff out and recruiting players, and now we're about halfway through spring practice, and but it's been great reception from all the Albuquerque community, and excited about the opportunity ahead.
You know, now that you have an idea of what you have coming back, what has that been like? Like what have you noticed with this team, and if I said to you, what is the identity? What would you say to me?
I think it's a team that wants to be good. I think we got a lot of guys who it's important to, but maybe just didn't know exactly how to get it done. So, we've been just trying to align, guys' individual goals with what they want to accomplish with their actions every day, and pointing out those inconsistencies when you got championship dreams, but you got 5 and 7 actions. So, and trying to get that together. But it's been a good mix. We've really had to work a lot on team building. We had about 30 guys who came in at mid-year. We have 87 on the roster right now, so we've been working a lot on relationships, both the coaches, the new coaches, building great relationships with the players, but also the new players and the players who are here, blending together and trying to build a family. And I like where we're at with that. And
what has been like one of the most challenging things for you?
I try to look at things as more as opportunities than challenges, but I think it's been a great opportunity to get some guys evaluated who haven't played a lot here, but we're on the team, and getting those guys better. James Lobstein's a quarterback who was here last year and didn't get to attempt to pass in the game, but I think he's made great progress and has really improved over time. Or a guy like Elijah Brody, who's from right in town, from the west side of Albuquerque, and he played a couple games last year, but redshirted, and we moved him to positions. We moved him from a safety to a linebacker, and he's been running with the first string now at will linebacker and doing a good job. So it's really just trying to get all the people in the right spots, and sometimes you got to have some position switches and things like that to give guys their best opportunity for success individually, and also give our team the best chance for success.
You sound like Gary Patterson, former TCU coach, when you're saying that, because I remember when he was here at New Mexico, he would do that, like have guys on his defense, when he was DC here, have guys move to where they would better serve the team. With the Brody move, I saw Brody in the game against Washington State, actually, coming down on special teams and just lay somebody out. He's one of those dynamic hitters, huh?
Yeah, and he's really just improved and grown, and I think he's had a great attitude. Moving, he'd never played that close to the football, moving down to linebacker, but I think he's embraced it. And I think guys like that are special. I think he's got a lot of pride in being a Lobo. His dad, who's the head coach over there, he was a Lobo as well. So I think those are, it's always good to find those guys in the state who have a lot of, personal pride and grew up, dreaming of being a Lobo.
Right. And your quarterback you brought with you, Lane, it must be a luxury to have him, because, we made an observation of him on the field, like lining guys up and stuff like that, like trying to push what you guys are trying to do offensively. He's like having a coach on the field, huh?
Yeah, I look back, and this is, my second opportunity to be a head coach, and I think the one thing that's, probably really aided me in this go-around compared to my last one, besides just everything you learn. I learned a lot over the last 3 years for things I screwed up and wanted to do better from just doing something the first time. But, we had 7 guys come with us from Idaho, and I think that really has helped us, because those guys are familiar with our systems, know the way we want to run things, and Jack really has a lot of those qualities of a coach on the field. He's been a little limited because his elbow's been bothering him, so that's kept him out of a lot of practices, but I think he's still making his presence felt, being an extra coach on the field, and helping those guys and helping the other quarterbacks, helping the receivers get where they want to be.
Now, you have these guys. What are you expecting in the fall? Like if you told me what you had coming in the fall, like some of these guys, how would you put that to me? How would you say that?
Well, I think we're going to have to be fairly active in the slate portal. I think the biggest thing we've been trying to do in this spring is get everybody better on the roster, and then really evaluate where we are. See what our strengths are, see what the areas we have to improve.
So you know what to get.
Yeah, and then we're going to have to add some pieces in the spring. I think this is there's been a lot of stuff I know in like our coaching media. I read an article on this website, Football Scoop, and a lot of college coaches are talking about that now. Just this 105 roster limit is imminent, which is really going to reduce the number of FBS football players. Because I know a lot of teams, some teams like Nebraska carried 150 guys last year. A lot of teams were probably in the 115 to 120 range.
Wow. And
now with everybody having to be in at 105, it's a little sobering for those guys, because there's that's kind of the message. This spring ball, a lot of guys are competing to be on the team. It's almost like an NFL training camp where cut down days coming. So there's been some good battles that way, and to me, everything that I'm looking for is making this team improve. We want to make sure we're taking steps in the positive direction, and for us coming off of a 5-7 season, the only way to go is to go to a bowl game next year. That's our goal, and that's where we're going to be next year in December.
What about like recruiting now? Like, because you talk about the portal, and I know when you got here, you were talking about how you kind of like to get some of these high school guys. You could have more of a pool of those high school guys, because now they're being kind of overlooked, because a lot of those big teams are just going straight to the portal.
Yeah, this season will be the heaviest that we ever go to the portal, and that was just kind of to get back to equilibrium and even things out. I think after the February signing period, I think we'd signed about 34 transfers and about 17 high school kids. I'd probably see that number maybe flipping next year, but the portal, you're getting kids who have college game experience, and you see guys in the in college games, 4-year college games is just the best indicator of what they can do. So we're going to be active. We have a general manager, Bo Davidson, who's already heavy on that. Even while we're finishing up practice, he's on guys and seeing who could go in the portal, and really evaluating our current roster with where we need help and where we need to add guys. But it's recruiting really is a year-round process for us.
The conversation is just getting started. We have more on the other side. How much does that help, man? Now, because the game has changed so much that it helps you to have a general manager. I mean, 20 years ago, I would never have
thought it.
Yeah.
And I would never thought the players have agents. I mean, that's the problem now is the players can have agents, and the agents are working the back channels, and they're talking to people about what I could get at another school, and it's a tough balance because. Obviously, if a guy can do something great for his family and make a ton of money, you can't be down on them. That's kind of why you went to college in the first place. A lot of people is to make a living and things, but we guys got to do a good job, and I think finding good value. Guys who are high production and exceed that, and you're gonna have a few guys who you're gonna have to invest heavily in, but you need a lot of good players to win a football game. It's not like basketball where. Two or three great players can make you a great team. In football, you got to have great depth, and you got to build a whole roster.
Now, as you do this, as you try to navigate the portal with all the different changes and stuff like that, has it been? How much of a load will Bo lift off of you since he's here now? You got a GM.
It certainly helps. It helps just with the acquiring players, but also just some of those conversations, because I think that's. I think that's probably one of the biggest things of why I wanted that in place, is because I think one of my jobs as a coach is to get everyone to believe. Get our fans to believe in what we're doing, get our players to believe that when we go into games, even a game like Michigan, we're going to be underdog next year. Getting those guys believing that we can do it, and there is finite funds. There's kind of that salary cap you have to deal with what your what your funding is and what you have, and. Somebody's got to say no sometimes. Somebody's got to say, no, we can't do that, or you're not worth it. And I think it's better to have somebody who's not one of the coaches to be that guy, because right after you're telling them, hey, you're not worth that, you got to tell them, hey, I believe in you. You can beat this roster at Michigan. And, Michigan will probably have a $15 million roster next year. So it's a little different. So I think Bo will help be a good layer of that between our coaching staff and those negotiations. Well,
you as far as retaining players, you got Richard Pierce coming back, the big offensive lineman, 320 pounds of pure fun. This guy doesn't, he was part of an offensive line that they weren't going to allow any sacks. They were just like, no, you're not going to do it. And then a couple of guys follow him behind. How much did that help? And how nice is it to have a guy like that on a team who, you know, he was out in the community doing turkey giveaways last year and stuff like that. You know, just a good individual.
Richard's a real special young man, and he's a great leader. You know, I think he has the utmost respect for his teammates. You know, he even had an injury during the off season that, you know, they thought he was going to be out a couple months, and like that, you know, later that day he's running stadium steps and beating all the other guys, and he's got his arm in a sling. So he's got a great toughness about him. He's a mature young man. You know, he's one of the few guys on the team who's married and things. So he's wise beyond his years. I think he's got a great toughness to him, and having leadership from your O-line is, I think, critical, because when you can have great leaders with your O-line and they're pushing themselves, especially as you get into those, you know, summer where you're training in hot days, I think that you know, if the little 175, 80-pound receivers and DBs see a 320-pound guy pushing himself in the heat and things like that, I think that sets the tone. So I think that was really a critical guy that I'm very thankful we were able to retain and get him to take his name out of the portal and stay put with us.
I think you had the inside scoop on him, Coach, because you're a former lineman. He was like, my guy.
Yeah, we developed the lineman. No one puts more importance on the offensive line than myself and our staff, and we believe how that's going to win. And I think it can be a strength for us again. You know, we got a couple other guys who were in the portal who came back. Tevin Shaw, who started a couple games last year and is really working hard to rehab off of a knee injury. Malik Alian, you know, started a couple games last year for us and has been working really hard. And then, you know, we plugged in some new guys. We got a guy, Big Mook, Israel Muika, who's transferred from Mercer, is having a really good spring for us at the other guard opposite Pierce. And then Neville Brown has had a really good spring coming in from Alabama A&M and has really, you know, given us some good things at tackle. So, again, we're just melding it all together and trying to find those right combinations. But I think, you know, the offensive line, I think our running backs are going to be a strength of the team this year.
I know we talked about it earlier about guys coming, you know, like getting some more guys when the fall session starts. What kind of numbers are you talking about maybe adding to this roster that's already?
Yeah, I could see us adding maybe 10 guys during this late portal window. You kind of hold your breath. You know, one of my happiest days of the year is April 26th this year, because the portal closes on April 25, and then once that happens, you know, you're not going to have any surprises of guys leaving. But you know, I'm hoping guys are enjoying their experience here with our new staff that's here and see the vision we have for what we can do here in the future. But you know, you're dealing with 18 to 23-year-old young men, and you know, sometimes they make decisions that, you know, sometimes they may be the best for them. You know, they got to make a decision for their future as well. And,
right.
You know, I think it has been a positive development having this, because coaches have had the transfer portal forever. You know, that's nothing new for coaches. But so it's good the players have that. But, you know, we'll have to see just how our roster sets out. You know, we'll have kind of exit interviews with all of our players at the end of spring ball and, you know, tell them, you know, what we think their strengths are, what are the areas they got to improve on, and kind of where they stand right now. And then, you know, you're hoping not to lose a lot of your good players post-spring. And, you know, we lost a lot of players in the portal, you know, during the early window. So I'm not anticipating losing a large number of guys. And, you know, we'll always be honest with guys. I think, you know, we want, you know, college football is a big investment. You work your tail off. It's a lot of hours and time. And, you know, it's tough sometimes if a guy's going to be a career backup and always be a second string or third string guy here. You know, I support those guys if they want to maybe transfer down to a lower level so they can play more. So we'll be honest with those guys, and those conversations will hash out, but it'll be, you know, April 15th to the end of April will be a hectic time, kind of seeing exactly where we're at and building the final roster for next year.
So you have the bottle of Maalox with a straw in it, right?
That's right. That's right. When it closes, I might even have a cocktail that night to celebrate once I know it's finally closed. So,
well, with that said, evaluating talent is really important nowadays, because you really don't want a miss. You want to get as many hits as you can, and also the portal each year seems like it grows. It becomes like oversaturated. So you can actually find some home runs like late.
Yeah, you got to do a good job. You got to do a good job evaluating. You know, I think sometimes you got to, you know, think out of the box a little bit, and you know, it's always that balance when you're looking at players coming up, you know, moving up levels, you know, and how to. You know, it's a fine mix. I've liked those guys a lot. I think a lot of times if you're really productive, you know, at a FCS school, it'll probably carry over to a Group of 5 school, you know, that way. But, you know, you still got to evaluate, you know, their size, their speed, and how that will fit in. And, it's more art than science. You got to have a little feel, and really the big thing I'm looking for is I want the right people. I want guys who love football, who are high character guys, who are going to add to our environment in our locker room and be a positive, by the energy they bring every day and how they work. And
you said something key, high character guys, because I'm a firm believer that you got high character guys when you get in those games that are really tough and there's a lot of adversity, and when they're going to be tested, those guys are going to come through because their name and who they are means something to them for real. You know what I mean?
Being able to respond to adversity, because adversity is going to happen. You don't know what it's going to be, but we're going to have some injuries to deal with next year. They'll have some things that go wrong in games that we got to overcome, and a lot of stuff you can't control. You get a bad call by an official, but the toughness, the mental toughness you can have to respond in the right way and control what you can control is critical. And that's something we're constantly working to develop with our guys too. Yeah. But I think it's a combination of wanting to develop guys once they're here, but also target that recruiting kind of positive peer pressure in the right direction for the type of guys you want.
Stay with us. More conversation on the other side.
We'll get back to the episode in a moment. Monica Wicki here, host of New Mexico Living. I wanted to let you know that this episode is sponsored by Route 66 Casino and Caesars Sportsbook. If you love sports and like having a little action on the game, Caesars Sportsbook is your go-to destination. For rewards and more info, go to Route66Casino.com. Now back to the episode.
We didn't talk about the other side of the ball yet, defense. How do you? We only talked about Brody, defensive line and the rest, like the secondary. How you feeling about that?
Yeah, I think our defensive line. We have some guys coming along. I think Brian Booker was a transfer who came in at D tackle, who's probably been our top D tackle in the spring. Gabe Lopez is a guy who played a lot of snaps last year at D end, who was sliding down into playing more D tackle now and has really embraced that role. I think he's a great leader. He was a team captain last year and plays very hard and is smart. Is doing the right things. Darren Agu is a transfer DN from Vanderbilt. It was a little limited early in the spring, but I think has really flashed some good things. We're anxious to get Keyshawn James Newby back. He's missing all of spring as far as the full workouts. He was a guy we brought down from Idaho with us, who was an FCS All-American and had 11 sacks. He'll be fully cleared here in the summer to be ready to go, to train all summer, to get ready for fall camp. Xavier Slayton is another guy we brought from Idaho. He was running with the first group today at the other DN spot opposite Darren, who's showing some good things. And then, the linebacker core, Dimitri Johnson. He was a guy who really benefited from Diego Pavia's rule. He got an extra year. He thought he was done. Thought his career was over when he walked off that field in Hawaii last year. And then after that ruling, he got another year back. And I think he's really done a good job at inside linebacker. It was him and Brody at the two inside spots this week. And then, secondary is coming along. A lot of new faces in the secondary. Abe Williams has probably been our top corner this spring, who came down with us from Idaho. Austin Brawley has done a good job at safety. And then another name that Lobo fans will remember, Tavian Combs, I think, has done a lot of good things this spring. He's battled some injuries the last couple of years. And he was another guy who was in the portal, and we were able to talk into coming back and sticking with us, and I think he's really doing a nice job.
Going back to the portal, how much do you think it hurts some of these guys when they don't have any tape and they're jumping in the portal? It's like you maybe you have a grandiose view of your abilities, but you don't even have any tape.
Yeah, I think it's tricky, because I know this. I don't like guys in the portal who never played, because to me, I always think, if I'm going to do that, why don't we just take a high school guy that we have a lot of time to mold and develop? But I want guys who played a lot of snaps if we're taking a guy in the portal and who's going to bring a lot of savviness and experience and has seen looks on the field and will play faster. So I don't think that's that's always wise. And then you hear some whispers. There's been at least two guys that I've heard whispers about, of guys who were here and left, who now are kind of back channeling, talking to their teammates, and
hey, man, can I come back?
So you got to be careful, man. It's like it's, and you know what? I think it's fair, because it's no different than coaches. I think coaches got to be the same way. You better make sure you're moving on to a really good situation and things. And I do think it's good that players have that opportunity, but you got to be smart. You don't want to make a bad move and leave a situation and end up somewhere worse, because if you're miserable every day where you're at, money, no money can buy.
You're right about that.
You go to some place where you're miserable, even though you're making a little bit more money.
You say, hey, you played yourself. Well, hey, what about the schedule? I know that I haven't really hit on the schedule. You guys, you brought it up. You start out with Michigan, man. You said bring me the entire buffet. Just bring it to. I'm eating now.
Let's go. Great opportunity. You get to play in one of the most iconic stadiums in the country, the Big House, and play a team. I mean, they've been hot lately. They beat Ohio State in their last regular season game, and I think they beat Alabama or something in their bowl game. So that's good. They'll be they'll be ready for the Lobos next. But be a great experience for our players to go out there. I think that's always a thrill, when you get to go out to one of the top programs in the country and play. I know, last year at my last institution, we were able to go play at Oregon, and that was a thrill for our players. And, we went over there and played their tails off. They ended up beating us by 10, but, we competed well. So it'll be a great measuring stick, and then excited to get home right after that. We got Idaho State for the home opener, a team I'm very familiar with, played in the last 3 years when I was at Idaho, and then get to go out to another iconic venue in UCLA in the Rose Bowl, see those beautiful mountains, and then we come back here for the interstate rivalry, man, the Rio Grande rivalry. So I'm excited to have my first game in that matchup, and I've had a lot of people around the state tell me that's the one they have circled on their calendars and things. So excited to be a part of that, and then we'll get into the conference slate. We start out with 2 games on the road in conference, but. We got some teams we get to play them the last time before they move on out. So nothing better than trying to beat somebody on their way out of town.
Yeah, especially Utah State. So, well, hey, Coach, I really appreciate your time. He's Jason Egg. Great guy, personality, man. This dude is positive, man. You just walk in. If the day was bad, you just brighten up. It's a positive energy, man. Thank you, head coach of the New Mexico Lobos football team, Brad Benson, helping out behind the camera. I'm Van Tate. We'll see you next time.